Welcome back to the Frontend Coffee Break. This is episode 24. My name is Ricard Torres. With me, as usual, Chucho Castañeda. How are you?
Hello, Ricard. I'm all good. Relaxed today. It's been a tough day, but in general, not that tough. So quite relaxed.
But it's good. It's November. It's super hot in Barcelona. It's summer. So we cannot complain. It's fantastic.
Well, I'd rather be a little bit, for it to be a little bit cold. But unfortunately, I do have my coffee, as always, that warms my hand. And I hope that I don't spill it all over.
Is it decaf? Is it gaff? Does it have some sort of energizer in it?
No. The only time that I use, usually my first coffee in the morning is regular coffee. But after that, it's always decaf, unless I'm too sleepy, which is not that common. So it's decaf. I try to stick with decaf.
All right. Sounds good to me. Topic for today, something we have not prepared very well. But we will try our best because I come here with tensions, right? So the title or the theme for today is decisions or options, or decisions, not options, whatever. Here's my tension. My tension is we as front-end developers, we usually work with content management systems, right? I mean, I know some of you out there are heroes and you only code apps that have no content maintenance, but usually what we do in the enterprise is work with content management systems. In our case, AEM, basically it means that you have some content editors that create content in a platform, and then you use that to render your components in the front end to build a website, a web app, or whatever it is, right? Is that a good description of what we do, Chucho, or would you rephrase it somehow?
That's a great summary regarding on what we do. We specifically work ourselves with a content management system, which is part of the one of many ways to do it. And we give a lot of liberty to the clients to put or build the pages as they want to. We just create the tools, and then they use them. But there's always the problem with that. Since we are the ones that create the tools that they're going to later use to build the component, it's like, how good is the tool? What type of tool? How does the tool need to be in order to be useful, good, or whatever? In this case, just came into mind this old saying that if you have a hammer, every single problem seems like a nail. Even if it's a screw, it's like, nope, I have a hammer, so pop, 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 pop.
And that's my problem. That's my problem where we have like websites or like, let's say, user stories, right? Where, for instance, the user just wants to have a component that, I don't know, have an input field to enter an email address and sign up for a newsletter, right? So how do you create that component? I mean, what options do you give the content editor to create that component? Do you give them the options to add a header? Do you have the option to customize, the placeholder of the input, the label of the input, the required message, the submit label of the button? All this, I mean, how do you decide? How do you decide how much customization do you allow the content editors?
In the end, that's what you say. It depends on how much customization you want to allow, because it could be from you have a component that's called the my form or whatever thing you're going to try to do, a subscription form, and you just drag it, put it, and it has everything there, and maybe you just determine in which part of the page it is. Or you can be as complex as you add the container of the form, and then you add everything like, I want the layout to be like on the left side the tags, on the right side the inputs, or no, I want one above the other, and you could go so deep to give like total granular ability for them to make the form as they are, and it is a tough choice. And my opinion, it would really go depending on two things. The first thing is, what is the need that you are covering, or that you are how do you say this?
The problem we're solving,
you're solving, or the need that So what is it? No, what is the goal that you want to achieve with that? And depending on that, you take one decision or another, because it could be like, okay, I want a very simple thing to do. I just want to be able to do this with a form. It's the only form, and I've never changed it. So maybe in that case, you say, okay, you know that you're very clear that you're not using forms in the rest of the website. Maybe this is the form that you have. Then I'll create you the form
Yeah, you
element.
see, I don't think that. I mean, I've never encountered this. Like all the clients usually, if you ask them, do you want more customization or less customization? They always go, yeah, sure. Let me customize everything because I don't know. Maybe next month I will want to have a different like version of the component, and sure, give me the options. But then for development, for QA, for everything, it makes it so much complex, right? When you have, as you said, a component that can have 20 variants, right? Do you really need that? Maybe we as like consultants or front-end leads, front-end architect, whatever your role is, we gotta also like teach the clients not to say, hey, maybe it's good enough to have just a drag and drop component, looks perfect, meets the style guide, meets the designs, and you cannot make it break because the texts are fixed, short, translatable, but you cannot, multiple columns, left, right, more buttons, all those things.
Well, yeah, definitely us as roles, when you have us as roles, when we have a role of a tech lead or we have a role that is more in contact with the client, it is part of our job to assess or to tell, not assess, but to consult with the client and give him advice regarding on what to do. It's like, what is your need? This is your need. Okay, how can we cover it? This is the way that we can cover it. And you not only focus on that specific need, but you focus on the entire project itself. You have to have a more global focus to know, okay, so this is what you need you want to achieve. But then again, maybe you also have these other goals that you want to achieve. So maybe the best way to do it is this or that way. In the end, I think that, as you say, the client wants a lot of flexibility sometimes, but sometimes it's like, okay, do you really need it? Maybe not. So I'll give you the minimum amount of flexibility that it's flexible enough for you to work with, and then you can build upon that. I personally like that you don't have that many options. I mean, AEM, for example, already gives you a lot of options that you do not need to do yourself. Like, for example, and this is something that I love, the AEM grid system, where you can determine how the component is going to be looking in the different breakpoints. You can say, hey, in my phone, I want it to be full width, but when I go to tablet or go to the desktop breakpoint, I want it to cover 3 or 4 columns or whatever. And that's something that's already out of the box. You don't need to worry about that. But you do need to worry about other stuff that the client might want to do. Things that I've seen are, for example, the ability to change colors or the ability to change font sizes or spaces around or whatever.
I mean, I'm sure there are valid use cases where like a client really needs a way to customize the component in different variants because maybe the website is like an umbrella for different brands and you want to customize each like form for each brand. That I understand, right? But maybe you don't need that in the like component itself, but rather on a code based, like a code level where you have your CSS properties and then you change them accordingly to your theme, or like, well, what I really like is like having to customize everything, and then you have my end-to-end desk on Cypress. There have like 10 use cases where sure, it's on the left, it's on the right, it's multiple rich text with multiple links, bold fonts and everything. It's very hard to comply then with the designs, right? And then you get tickets saying, hey, this doesn't look good. And I'm like, yeah, but the content editors added like 200 lines. And what do I do? Do I just cut them off at 100 lines? Or what do we do, right? So it really adds complexity. And of course, the client wants this whole, what you see is what you get, right? Adding the component, dragging, as I said before, trying it in different viewports. But is this the best way to develop?
Well, at least the way that I see it is, I like the idea of developing components and making sure and having the author being the one that builds it. And well, you were mentioning the style guide. This is something, I guess, one of the places where you can start knowing what you really need. Taking a look at the style guide, seeing how things should look, and then based on that, you can know how complex things have to be or how configurable things have to be. Because it's one thing that you have to know is that yes, the client might want to have everything, but then again, the more you have, the more it costs. So the simpler the thing is, the less cost, because the development time is less. The customization is that costs money. So
but you see, sometimes they're loaded, man. Sometimes they're clients that they really have a lot of spend, and it's fine, and we love it, right? Everybody has money, but then it's really hard for me, at least, to sell like technical debt or over engineering, over complexity, saying, hey, this is just a component that could be like, just a small JavaScript, small CSS, and it will be rock solid. But then it comes up with, a lot of JavaScript, lots of CSS, multiple layouts in HTML, just because maybe in the future I want a variant.
For example, my philosophy would be to build the most simple components possible, giving not the minimum amount of options, but just give them a good set of base options, and then grow from there depending on the client's needs. And then, for example, add systems in which, as you say, that you can modify colors, you can modify spaces, you can modify this or that in a somewhat easy way. We actually have a product in Cognizant-centric, the DXN, which allows the user to begin, the client begin with a base website, and then we give them the liberty to actually change the themes, but from the entire website or from different specific pages or levels. So this means that they can customize, they can have a base website, and then they can customize things quite a bit. And I like the idea of that. It's like, you use the basic customization, and then you have something a little bit more complex that you can apply to your pages.
Yeah, but then you give the author so much power to actually break the design and break the website, right? They can add lots of components. They cannot follow the style guide, and then it does look really good, right?
Yeah, but that's what you want flexibility to be able to build whatever you want, or to build things that are your way. You have the flexibility to maybe break them. My philosophy when I'm building components in general is that I am going to assume that the author is smart, or that they know what they're doing. And if it doesn't look good, maybe it's because they didn't use the component right. And the reason because of this is because, yes, you can build thinking of, maybe the component, the user or the author is going to do this or that, and I'm going to build it in such a way that this will never make it look bad. But then you need to add additional code, additional styles, things to prevent the components for the page from breaking. And this is, once again, you add additional complexity that maybe it's not necessary. And maybe just saying, hey, man, if you want to use this component, take into account that you cannot use it here, or you cannot combine it with this because it's not made to be used that way.
Would working or developing in a headless manner solve some of these issues?
But how would you do it? I mean, the idea of working in a headless manner, it's interesting, but I think it has its very specific use cases.
Use cases, that's sure. I mean, I've been enjoying very much lately for the past several years, having my simple HTML with not much information, and then hydrating it with JSON data coming from an API. That could be content, that could be user data, and I enjoy very much the power that gives me in terms of controlling the component itself, right? I mean, surely there are variants, and surely the JSON could give you a property called give me color, right? Whatever it is. But usually it's more like you have your component which doesn't have many options, more like decisions, and then you hydrate with a JSON that comes from whatever. It could be AEM, it could be Experience Platform Manager, or it could be the new Edge Delivery thing, right? So I don't know. I mean, do you prefer one or the other, or if you could sell one or the other, what would you? Yeah.
Oof. My philosophy is always, and this is something that when I'm working in any project, I say, anything that can be done in the backend should be done in the backend.
Right. Okay.
That I like to keep the complexity in the front end to the minimum. So I think that, for example, the headless, if you go with the headless option, the thing that you have is that all the things are done in a way in the front end, because you receive a JSON, you receive the information, and then you need to process it and see what you do. Although I think that there are cases where this is valid, I try to have everything that can be done in the backend to be done in the backend. I like the idea of, this is something that I learned some years ago, and I was really impressed and I liked it, that with AM you could, for example, build your page or build experience fragments, pieces of code or pieces of content that you wanted done in a certain way. And then you could use those pieces of content and place them in the different parts of your website, or you can deliver it headlessly as a service to anyone that wants to use it. I found that quite interesting, because that means that you give the client the ability to create the content that they want, and then then to distribute it to whoever wants to consume that content. It doesn't have to be the website itself, which would be the main consumer. But then you can send this to, I don't know, other applications, third-party applications, or you can use it in sub websites, or I don't know, whatever. And it's nice. And when you want to update that information, just go to the editor, to the Experience Fragment editor, edit the content there, and everything everywhere gets updated. That's nice. So I do think that it has value, but I would always go on more of a non-headless way. How about you? Because I think
you've given like perfect example, saying, hey, think of your content of multi-channel, right? Not just website, but think about if you have your own web app, or you have your email, and everybody can just consume this service. And in the end, Experience Fragments from AEM is just a form, right? You fill up the form and you have fields, and then you get the JSON, which is fantastic, and everybody can work with it. I cannot disagree with you. You know who I am. I know you. It's like we're brothers, right? So definitely, if it can be done in the backend, do it in the backend. It's faster. It's easier. Surely, frontend should be just in charge of painting, right? Even though we dumb down our skill set or whatever you call it, in the end, yes, painting is just fine. Don't give me like business logic on the front end. But still, I mean, going back to headless, I don't know. I think it's powerful because the authors cannot break much stuff. Like you have a form and you fill it, and then it's pretty much sure. I mean, it's an input field, or it's a text area where a drop down, selecting 3 options, and then the author cannot really break the website. But when you have what you see, what you get, sort of environment where you can, drag random components, change everything, it's more prone to error, which then you go back to origin of the episode, decisions are options, right? What do? Do you take a decision of saying, hey, the component can only have this form, and then you fill it and it will look fantastic? Or do you give them options to, break or not break?
Very good. But then again, in this case, when you're working with headless, as you say, you are just creating content that then someone has to consume it. But then I don't know, could you break it when you're consuming it?
I mean, I guess, sure. I mean, if you code wrongly the component in JavaScript, but in the end, you would have one template, right? Imagine you receive an array of items, and it's name, last name, age, and favorite color. But in the end, you will render that on the HTML, and there's no way for you to place it differently unless you have some sort of configuration or more properties to configure it. In the end, you have these elements, you print them. You could also in the front end, trim the strings, split whatever you want to split, to do all your magic in JavaScript to make it look good always, right? Regardless of the content, you say, heading is going to be only 50 characters, be done with it. I don't know.
And in your personal projects, how do you work with this kind of philosophy? Or
Good one. Good one. In my personal project, since I'm only a front end, I don't want to do. I don't want to do backend, so it's usually just server-side render, right? It's just HTML, and I mean, usually we are in the Frontend Coffee Break, and we love front-end, but I hate front-end. I mean, I hate JavaScript, right? Not front. I hate JavaScript. You know me. We've already talked about this in the past. So in my side projects, it's a lot of HTML, great CSS, and just a small JavaScript here and there, if I can help it, because JavaScript, man, I'm just so tired.
But well, then again, in my case, I guess I go more or less in the same direction as you. But then there's some personal projects that I have that are very JavaScript heavy, because basically I'm building interfaces or building something that I wanted to do. I have one put in the freezer, which is basically a comic book reader.
Nice.
And which basically you just grab an image and then you select, you edit the way that the comic should be read, and then someone on the phone can go and read the same comic, and he just creates scripts or what to show the image and such. That's quite JavaScript heavy. But then again,
wait, why? So it's just a bunch of images, one under the other, and that's it. That's a comic.
It is one image, a comic book, and then you have to decide. If you're reading web comics, and in an app, you can just look at the
vertically
image,
or horizontally. Huh?
Yeah, but that's the least thing. You can also go panel by panel. You can just like swipe. Yeah. So it gave you a possibility of just having, especially in the phone, that was the idea. Just swiping, and then it showed you the next panel, and swiping, and then it would do, like, not only would it show you the next panel, but also if you wanted to do a little bit of zoom, if you wanted to shake the image a little bit, it added a little bit of interaction that you were seeing there.
So it's not just showing the page of the comic, but actually one part of the page.
And then smoothly transitioning to the different part. And this is, in the end, quite JavaScript.
Definitely JavaScript.
But we're digressing on the topic at hand. Decisions, options, headless, and such.
Whatnot. Yeah. So yeah, going back to it, I think that there's room for everybody, right? Doing a server-side render or doing headless. I don't know. It's a tough one. I would love to hear more from other roles of people, like more consultants or quality assurance people that are even backends, right? How do you guys feel about giving authors so much power, and then you end up with defects and you end up with issues that would have not happened if the components were maybe simpler or not as free form, right? Rich text and all those things.
Well, as time goes by, the tools become more and more powerful. When I started working with AM, we didn't have, for example, the grid system. It was more or less like, you wanted to have 2 columns, you needed to create a column control. It was like a very, I think it's still a very common component in different websites that you have a column control, because you want to put elements divided in columns. And now with the grid system, the editor has, if you have it activated, they have a lot of power and are able to organize or the layouts in many different ways, and not only in the page, but in one view, but in different breakpoints, be very specific, and that is amazing. And
if you use also container queries with that, it's amazing.
If you use container queries, that is like next level, which is great, because it gives you a lot of power without having that many options.
Yes, thank you.
You don't have that many options, and yet the ones that you have give you a lot of flexibility, which is quite nice. We have projects, and there are some very interesting projects that are being done by colleagues of ours that are just blow your mind regarding what you're doing. Because, for example, let's say you have a very simple image component, which usually you just drag an image, you add the alt text, and maybe add 1 or 2 other options, very basic options. But I've seen components, and I've worked on components in which you add the image, and then you select part of the view. You might select, okay, I want this part of the image to be shown in desktop and this part of the image to be shown, to edit, and even just add additional, the controls that they build around the different components are just like next level. It's amazing. So you can build anything, but I agree that the idea is that to give the client as much flexibility as they have without making it too complex.
I've said everything you need to say. I am now fulfilled, and I want to hear from the audience, right? Really, the listeners. Okay. If you have inputs on this or your opinions, we would love to hear them and challenges.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see what the audience has to say.
Thank you so much, Chucho, for joining me.
Thank you very much, Ricard, and I hope that you have a great day.
See you in the next Frontend Coffee Break.
Bye.